Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, and access to daily news digests from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, as well as guided meditation programs. Between a full-time job in IT and a full-time job in podcasting, it gets harder and harder to sit down and read the books I'm interested in. This is where Audible comes in. I can listen on my daily commute, relaxing, or while out running errands and still get in the books I've been wanting to get into. You can download titles and listen offline anytime, anywhere. The app is free and can be installed on all smartphones and tablets. Now you can try Audible risk-free with a special 30-day free trial by visiting audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. That's audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. Don't let your busy life get in the way of that great book you've been wanting to read. Go get your free trial of Audible today. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is Geoffrey, and we've talked about many times before that I experience problems and struggles with my mental health, and really without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy does work. It's helped for me, but what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, or you're not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's really time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles, and it's time to start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is a customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And there's a special offer to Nerdery and Murdery listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. That's betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
All right. I want D&D, but I want it to be dark. I want it to be all about Mad Max and everything else. I think they have a campaign setting for this. You know what? They do. And it's dark and it's sad. And yeah.
Welcome to episode 191 of Nerdery and Murdering.
Big 191. I'm Zig with your nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your murdery. Welcome to another week, the highs and lows, the ups and downs, the good and the bad, and the nerd and the murd. Our living room is under demo. We're having the house that we got down here, it was originally a one-story house, and the guy built onto it over the years. And when you come in the front door, it's got this weird foyer area that it's kind of a hallway you go down, and it's useless. There's no point in this hallway, and all it does is shut off the living room. So Chelsea decided she wanted to go, and we've got a guy we know down here who builds houses. And we talked to him, and he came and excuse me, looked at it. And,
was it load bearing?
There were no load bearing columns. That was because I was worried about that. Because one of the weird things is that there was this column with this weird little bar, basically, that just shut the living room off and closed it down. It was not load bearing. I was worried about that.
You just put it up there to have it.
Yeah, it was stupid. It was weird. So we're taking our back door, which was just a single door and some windows, and we've got that wall removed. We're basically got plywood there right now.
Nice.
Um, but that's going to be a movable glass wall that we
Okay.
can completely open up to the backyard. And we're putting in the screens like we used to have up in Denton. Um, but opening up the living room, it's going to be really, really nice when it's done. But it's under demo right now, so our entire living room is just under construction.
Just a wreck.
Um, it's just a wreck right now.
Dust and
You
bits of
know,
tile and
yes, yes. It's we're kind of we're living in that, and I've got they've got to I've got to hear the construction guys going all day long. So, but anyway, um, I did go to see Lou Graham in Asia.
excellent.
So much fun. It was a great concert.
I
Little,
I told Jeffrey if Asia doesn't play Heat of the Moment, he needs to fucking riot.
it was ridiculous. Of course, they were going to play Heat of the Moment. Of course, they were going to play Jukebox Hero.
Midnight Blue.
He did Midnight Blue. I knew every song of Asia's but one, and the one I didn't know was one that was recently written. So that's the only one I didn't know. But Asia, that I was because so Asia does not have the original lead singer. It's the lead singer they've had since the '90s, John Payne, and his voice is still great. I mean, it's
Oh, nice.
still great. I was
Well, I
very
heard
surprised.
Lou Graham had some like breathing trouble about 10 years ago. How did he sound? Was he short of breath?
No, he sounded good. He sounded good. I think he may be dealing with some arthritis or something because he was kind of hunched over
Hmm.
quite a bit. Didn't really move around a whole lot. Um, John Payne did. John Payne was running all around the stage and it was cool, but it was a little tiny arena called Payne Arena,
Hmm.
which that's a car dealership down here, and I guess they're the big sponsor of it. But it looks like it's maybe a basketball arena or a hockey arena. It was very intimate.
Oh, nice.
Um,
You sent pictures. It looked like a pretty cool venue.
it was very nice. I mean, we spent 20, we spent $20 for the tickets,
Good
another
price.
29 in fees.
Uh,
So it ended up being about $50 a ticket, but still, for the seats we had, as close as we had, it was great, and I really enjoyed the concert. It was a lot of fun. There were five of us that went, um, and it was really really cool. I'm so glad I got to go to that concert. I was very happy with that. I'm just singing along to all the Asia songs and all the foreigner stuff. It was great. I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
nice.
Um, we finished Bosch. I told you I'd been watching that. That's been a great show. I didn't know that Bosch and the Lincoln Lawyer were in the same universe.
Oh, are they?
Not the TV shows, but the actual characters from the books
Hmm.
that the author wrote. They're in the same universe. Because, matter of fact, the Lincoln Lawyer, who's Mickey. Mickey, why can't I remember Mickey's name? But anyway, Mickey and Bosch, they're actually half brothers.
Oh, well.
So that's kind of cool watching that. um, we had a SpaceX launch down here. Got to see it
Hmm.
in the sky at any rate, which was pretty wild. And then the last thing I was going to tell you, and I told Chelsea, I said, I said, you understand this is going on my show. I'm watching the trailer for Star Trek Section 31.
Yes.
And standing there watching it, and I told Chelsea, I said, you know what? I'm really interested in seeing that show. I want to see that. And she goes, I'll explain what she meant in a minute, but she said, well, but before you watch that, you have to go watch the Star Trek. And I said, I'm sorry, the Star Trek?
The Star Trek. You watching the Star Trek?
She meant to say watch Discovery because I haven't watched Discovery yet. That she figured Discovery I would need to watch before I got into Section 31. But I laughed so hard because she said the Star Trek.
The Star Trek.
I don't think I'm going to need to watch Discovery to watch it. I know what Section 31 is. I know what
Hmm.
Section 31 is from the Star Trek the role playing game.
Hmm.
The online, the massively online role playing game, however that goes. So I know what Section 31 is, and I guess there might be some characters from Discovery. I don't know, but um,
Georgia. Georgia. I
I've
actually watched it.
I've heard good and bad reviews.
I really, really enjoyed it. One of the guys from Detroiters was in it.
Hmm.
I really like him. I like uh, I actually like the whole thing. It was really cool. I'm gonna watch it again because I kind of got distracted in the middle of it.
Huh.
But not of a fault of the show itself or the movie itself. It's really good, and they set it up for another one.
Hmm.
It's only like
I
an hour
thought,
and a half.
yeah, I thought it was going to be a TV series. I was surprised when I saw it's a
No,
movie.
but it kind of plays out like a backdoor pilot. So
Hmm. Interesting. Well, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to at least give it a shot. But like I said, I've seen mixed reviews. I've had some people at work that I talked to that have watched it and they didn't really like it, and then I've heard others that did. So I don't know. I'm going to give it a shot at some point. But anyway, you got anything for us? Or are you ready to jump into it?
I am ready to jump into it.
Sweet, head on out.
Dark Sun is a campaign setting for Dungeons and Dragons role-playing game set on the desert world of Athos. Dark Sun is about the struggle for survival. 9 city-states cling to life in the Tablelands. Until recently, they were ruled by powerful sorcerer kings, both tyrants and protectors. Now only 5 remain. The other cities are cast into chaos and violent strife. However, the desert may soon swallow them up, as it is so many times before. The wastes are riddled with ruins of cities long dead. It is a world where magic drains the very essence of life. Ancient wars have left vast swaths of the planet sterile. Even now, druids fight a losing battle to preserve the environment. To practice magic is to tempt death at the hands of the mob, yet the cities themselves are ruled by most powerful of defilers. It was originally released in 1991 by TSR for AD&D Second Edition. Athos.org has been the steward of the Dark Sun campaign setting since the release of D&D Third Edition in 2000. Athos, like the world of the multiverse, changes with the passage of time, and like all worlds inhabited by humans, time is marked by the occurrence of great events. I have a chronicle of some of those events. History is rare in a world without seasons, in a world where the past remains as hidden and mysterious as the depths of the sea of silt. So TSR released the second edition of Battle Systems, its main combat rule set in 1989. In 1990, the company began pre-production on a new campaign setting that would use the rule set and working titles of which was Warworld. The team envisioned a post-apocalyptic world full of exotic monsters and no hallmark fantasy creatures whatsoever. TSR worried about the concept, wondering how to make a product that lacked any familiar elements. Eventually, elves, dwarves, and dragons returned, but in warp variations as their standard AD&D counterparts. The designers credited the revision as a pivotal change in the launching of the project in a new direction. Contributors to this project in the beginning included Rick Baker, Gerald Brom, Tim Brown, Troy Denning, Mary Kirkhoff, James Loden, and Steve Winter. With the exception of Denning and Kirkhoff, design veterans such as David Zeb Cook declined to join the conceptual team, though Cook would write the first 2 adventure modules. Freedom and Road to Uruk. The majority of project members were new to TSR, though, not necessarily in the industry, Winter having worked at GDW. Steve Winter suggested the idea of a desert landscape. His inspiration drew partly from Den by Richard Corbin and the fiction of Clark Ashton Smith. The Dark Sun setting drew much of its makeup from artist Brahms' imagery. I pretty much designed the look and feel of the Dark Sun campaign. I was doing paintings before they were even writing about the settings. I'd do a painting or a sketch, and the designer wrote those characters and ideas into the story. It was very involved in the development process. Game designer Rick Swan described the setting as using the desert as a metaphor for struggle and despair. This presents a truly alien setting, bizarre even for AD&D game standards, from a dragon to spellcasting, from character classes to gold pieces. This ties familiar AD&D conventions into knots. He said that Athos shares the post-apocalyptic desolation of FGU's Aftermath game and GDW's Twilight 2000 game. usually after a post-Holocaust setting. But the original box set was released in 1991 and presented the base settings detail wherein the Tier region is on the verge of revolution against the Sorcerer Kings. A five-book fiction series, The Prism Pentad, written by Denning and edited by Lauder, was released beginning in 1991, and it coordinated with the box set. Set a decade after the first box set, the expanded and revised box set released in 1995 updated the settings to reconcile the events and characters introduced since the initial 1991 release, and gave more details on the world outside the Tier region. Um, Following the settings release, poor sales of the battle system soon stopped its further inclusion in Dark Sun products, and the tie-in with the complete psionics handbook proved more successful. All characters and creatures were psionic to a greater or lesser degree, but designers regretted the extra time involved in attaching these rules to practically every living thing in the campaign world. Now, the reason they used psionics over magic is because if you use magic, it drains energy out of the land. In Dark Side, you can basically cause a devastating plague just by casting a cantrip. So they used psionics. And I know you were really interested in psionics back in the day. You
Yep.
kind of like to use them.
Yep. Well, I had, well, I mean, you actually have to go into Shadowrun,
Hmm.
um, because I had a character that was a psionic. Um, my basically my magical character for
Hmm.
Shadowrun, the one that thought he was a spy.
Yeah, the James Bond one.
Yes.
Love that guy. That was funny. But yeah, so psionics plays really big, and they kind of regretted that they had to tie psionics into it, but it makes sense because it's hard to use actual magic.
Mhm.
It's like Shadowrun. In Shadowrun, there's a thing called a blood mage, and what they do is they use basically living beings to power their spells. Um, they're all evil. You can't be a good blood mage. Um, Sorcerers in Dark Sun are basically that. Um, so you've got that going on. So if you can't really be a magic user, you have to be a psionics user. There are some like druids and things like that, but it's more of a they're kind of underpowered because they have to balance what they're doing magically with putting life back into the planet. The Dark Sun game line ended abruptly in late 1996 when TSR released its product schedule in Dragon number 236. No Dark Sun products were included. The final release was Psionic Artifacts of Athos, uh, though two books, Dragoth Ascending and Secrets of the Deadlands, were rumored to have been near completion, to the point that early versions were reportedly given to some GMs at the 1997 Gen Con Game Fair before the line ended. Prior to the line's cancellation, designer Kevin Melka claimed that another Halfling product, a book on the Dwarves and a book on the Order, were part of his official proposal for 1997. An invasion of the Kreen Empire was also being considered, according to Melka, along the mystery of the messenger and a product of the Silk Sea. um, so let's talk about why it's different from other D&D products or, Lord of the Rings, things like that. They do have halflings or hobbits. Most of them are wild cannibals. If you get caught by them, they will catch you, they will skin you alive, and they will eat you. And they live in this narrow band of mountains with this forest around it, this little strip of forest around it, and it's great because there's life there. You can usually find water there. It kind of rings the Silt Sea, which is basically a sea of not really sand but dust, and stuff comes up out of it because there used to be cities there. Um, the elves are wild and kind of crazy, and just as soon cut your throat as help you out. Same for most of the humans. Most of the people start out as generally in this series, you start out as a slave. That's how most people start the campaign. Either you're escaping from someone, or you've just been freed, or something like that. That slavery is completely usable inside these cities. Um, it's crazy. Dragons are basically what they are in Game of Thrones. They are um, weapons of mass destruction. It's dark. The campaign setting is played on the fictional planet of Athos. Novels and source books largely take place in the Tyr region, though other areas are described for play. The exact landmass configuration of the planet or the existence of other continents is unknown. Athos is a devastated world, the result of magic run amok. Most of Athos is an empty desert, interrupted by a handful of corrupt city-states controlled by power-mad sorcerer kings and their spell-wielding lackeys. The brutal climate and the oppressive rule of the sorcerer kings has created a corrupt, bloodthirsty, and desperate culture that leaves little room for chivalric virtue common to fantasy settings. Hence why there are no paladins. Again, slavery is commonplace. Gladiatorial duels provide entertainment for the elite, and death permeates the culture. A lot of people start out in the fighting pits, and that's how you gain um, experience and things like that. Um, Metal is also very rare. Most of the coins are ceramic. They're made from clay and glazed in various colors. And this is the primary medium of exchange, worth about a hundredth of a gold piece due to scarcity of metal. Weapons and armor are made from natural materials such as bone, stone, wood, carapaces, or obsidian, and are prone to breaking. Only a single dragon exists in all of Athos, a monstrosity whose appearance heralds disaster of catastrophic proportions. Again, it is a weapon of mass destruction. Arcane magic draws its power from the life force of plants and are living creatures with the potential to cause tremendous harm to the environment. As a result, wizards are only arcane casters, are despised and must practice in secret. Psionics are extremely common, with nearly every living thing having at least a modicum of psionic ability. Athos has no deities and no formal religions other than the cults created by the sorcerer kings. There is some contention with the source material as to whether or not there were ever deities in the setting. The AD&D source material seems to suggest there weren't even any gods involved with Athos, while the 4th edition setting leaves the option open, more explicitly stating the gods were destroyed or driven away by the malevolent elemental spirits. Clerics and druids instead draw power from the inner planes and elemental chaos. Darkstone's extensive metaphor spans several fictional ages into its past and is described by a narrator called the Wanderer, who presents an in-game account of Athos' history in their Wanderer's Journal. So we have the Blue Age. The Wanderer's Journal begins with the Edenic Blue Age, when Athos was once covered with a vast body of life-giving water under a blue sun. Halflings ruled Athos during this time, building a powerful civilization. They were nature masters and life shapers, able to produce anything they needed by manipulating the principles of nature itself. And the age came to an end by an accident. The halflings of the greatest city of Tiragi tried to increase the sea's production in order to produce more creatures and plants. But the experiment failed, instead choking the sea with a toxic brown tide that spread across the waters, killing everything it touched. The Green Age began approximately 14,000 years before the setting started period. Despite desperate to save themselves and Athos from the brown tide, the halflings built the Pristine Tower, a powerful talisman that could harness the energies of the sun. The light of the Pristine Tower burned away the brown tide, but also changed the planet. The sun changed from blue to yellow, and the endless sea receded, revealing a nice green planet. The halfling civilization came to an end, and most of them withdrew from the world and spiraled into savagery. The last of the nature masters transformed themselves into new races, becoming humans, demi-humans, and other humanoids that repopulated the world and built new civilizations. Their former greatest city, Tiragi, was renamed Tyr, and the other great cities of the Tyr region, such as Ebe, Bodak, and Gizental, were built during this period. Due to mutations caused by the power of the Pristine Tower, the new people of Athos discovered they were gifted with psionics. Um, the next age is called the time of magic. Among the new races was a rare and powerful race known as the Pyrenes. One of their number, Rajat, would bring about sweeping changes to Athos. Rajat discovered magic 8,000 years before the current age. Seeking more power, he took possession of the pristine tower. Hence, he mastered this new force and developed two distinct ways: one that preserved nature, known as preserving, and one that exploited it, known as defiling. He taught preserving magic to the public, but secretly selected 15 human students with the potential for both psionics and magic for a darker purpose. Using the power of the pristine tower to harness the energy of the yellow sun, he transformed those 15 into his champions. Besides their native psionic powers and defiling magic, they were imbued with immortality and the ability to draw magical energy from living creatures through the use of obsidian orbs. The process of creating the champions turned the sun from yellow to red. These became the Sorcerer Kings, these 15 people. Rajat's ultimate desire was to eliminate all the other races and return the halflings to the splendor of the Blue Age. About 35 years before the current age, Rajat assigned each of his champions a race to exterminate, and the ensuing years of struggle were known as the Cleansing Wars. But because they used all of this defiling magic, it turned it into a desert wasteland. The struggles would have continued to completion, and champions not discovered that Rajat's true plan did not include their survival. Approximately 2,000 years before the current age, the champions, led by Boris of Ebe, rebelled against their creator and used one of Rajat's talismans, the Dark Lens, to imprison him in a shadow realm known as the Black. With Rajat in prison, the former champions renamed themselves Sorcerer Kings and and divided the surviving city states amongst themselves. The ritual that transformed Boris into a dragon, because Boris changed himself into a dragon, caused him to go mad and embark on a century-long defiling rampage. The defiling during the cleansing wars has been substantial, but Boris's rampage was the tipping point that turned Athos into the desert that it is. He basically turned the sun to the dark color that it is now. It's not really red; it's like a black sun. And then basically this is where the campaign setting takes off with. So this is what you're playing in when you're playing.
So as you described it, it brought back a memory, and I had to go look it up. A lot of what you're describing reminds me of a lot of the storyline from that podcast we listened to a long time ago, tabletop games or tabletop. God, I just looked it up and then I lost it again. But anyway, it doesn't look like they've done anything for a couple of years, so the podcast may be gone.
Yeah, I think it's dead now. Unfortunately, there were a lot of elements of Dark Sun in that. I don't think they were playing the full Dark Sun campaign setting.
No, it
but
wasn't.
They brought a lot of it in there because it's fucking fascinating.
Yeah, I think so. That was a good podcast. I'm sorry that they haven't put anything out in a while because that was a lot of fun. Yeah. Each week they were actively playing an adventure, and
they touted us and we touted them really early on in our
but they had they had the main storyteller, which made me think of the Wanderer. I think their storyline started with all the characters enslaved.
Fighting in fighting pits.
Yeah, I think so. Or no, they were in cages. I think they were in cage. They weren't in fighting pits. I think they were on a ship encaged. But anyway, that was a fun one. I'm sorry to see that they're not on the air anymore. But anyway, just reminded me of that.
Yeah. So Athos is dark, and a lot of the artwork originally done by Brom, and he did, I think, most of it. Now they did bring that website that I listed. There was a campaign setting that came out that wasn't D&D, but it was D20 based. So you could still get products from them. Recently, in the last year, they decided to bring Dark Sun back, so they are producing stuff again. Not only that other company, but D&D is producing some Dark Sun stuff again as well. Plus, the stuff is all readily available because people would buy like the modules things and take elements from it to use in their game. Because a lot of people didn't actually do the full Dark Sun game because it's rough, but you might want to take elements from it and some other things because it's kind of dark. I think we would have done fine, but then again, we were Shadowrun players,
Hmm.
so we're used to life fucking our characters over.
Oh yeah, and one of the campaigns that I GM'd, if you remember, I took y'all down into Australia,
Uh-huh.
where Australia has wild magic,
Yeah.
and you have to be careful casting anything down there because it could backfire on you.
Yeah. Could backfire and go crazy. That's basically what happens here. If you use the preservers, not so much, but if you get caught in a city using magic, they'll just kill you, or try to. So you gotta be careful doing anything. The
Speaking
Sea of
speak
Silt is dark too because there's all kinds of things in it, and little bits from the ancient cities will pop up. But there are also creatures that live in it that are huge and eat ships.
Speaking of role playing, Miranda got me a giant D20 for Christmas. It's in a glass case or plastic,
Nice.
yeah, plastic case. But anyway, this giant D20 is translucent, and it has an eyeball in it. And when you roll it, it lights up, and the whatever number ends up on top, the eyeball is staring at the number.
Okay, that's creepy.
Yeah, thought it was pretty
It's
cool.
like you got a baby beholder inside your D20.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool.
That's badass. So yeah, they wanted to use that battle system, um, which they did end up coming out. But I think I've got some battle system stuff around here somewhere.
Hmm.
It just didn't take off. So they used a lot of it in that Dark Sun game. So it's a little different from a D20 based system. Um, the mechanics are different. You use the same dice and things like that, but it took a lot of getting used to. And again, we talk about AD&D Second Edition. Most people were playing in either um, Greyhawk, Dragonlance, or Forgotten Realms. Most people played in Forgotten Realms.
Hmm.
I mean, that's everything that you think of D&D wise. Generally, you're thinking about Forgotten Realms. You're not
Yeah.
thinking about Greyhawk or Dragonlance or in this case Dark Sun. I liked it. Mostly for the artwork. I like the Brahms artwork. It was just so, well, I don't want to say brutal, but yeah, kind of brutal. They try to do this again with the like Planescape later on. They brought some of these elements over, but I don't think Planescape was as cool as Dark Sun. Um, just it was just cool and down to the banner for Dark Sun, which was basically the lettering of Dark Sun with a black sun behind it. Um, but still producing light. But yeah, it's amazing. I love all of the stuff associated with it. Um, I don't know if I'd ever want to play it full on, but maybe. I mean, it seems like it would be fun, especially if you're, dealing with fighting pits and things like that.
Oh, I'd like to play it. I mean, because you talk about dark and you talk about hard. If you remember right, um, we've talked about this on the show before. When we were playing Star Wars, we did that entire campaign where we were all evil characters.
Oh yeah,
Um, there were a couple of us that were Sith, some people that were assassins and
I played a
things like.
Chiss.
Yeah, you played a Chiss. I played a Sith Zabrak, that had those really cool blade launchers, that I had for bracers. Basically, they were this ancient Sith weapon that you
Landvarrock?
you you huh?
Was it a Landvarrock?
I don't
Oh wait,
remember.
that's a
I
blade thing.
it would basically, it would launch these blades that you controlled by the Force, and they were extremely deadly. But I mean, yeah, we played that. We've played some dark stuff before. We've
Hmm.
played some stuff that is insanely hard.
Hmm.
Um, so I mean, I'd give it a whirl.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like this would be nice for a little run. And again, the stuff is readily available. There is that site that I gave. I think it's just, and I have it listed in our links. I think it's just called like Dark Sun.
Mm.
But you could get, all sorts of other stuff there as well as ordering some books and things like that, or just, pull up some PDFs if you need to. But I mean, used bookstores generally have a lot of Dark Sun stuff because people would buy it just to have it, A, because it's beautiful, um, and use elements from it, but would eventually turn them back into used bookstores. So
Right.
again, readily available. But they are producing stuff for it again now, finally. Oh wait, not yet, but I think they're about to. In our YouTube playlist, I've basically given up, uh, or I found a history of the darks of Athos, of all the ages. Grab some popcorn. There's two or three of them, and I think they're each like 2 hours long. So there's a lot of material if you're interested. And the guy basically goes through it step by step on how everything went down and how it ties to the game mechanics, because a lot of the history ties into the game mechanics itself. Um, which are a little different, but they're not. I mean, they're not impossible to learn. They're pretty easy. That battle system wasn't that hard, actually. I think the whole idea with the battle system was to condense the rules down a little bit, especially when you got into AD&D Second Edition, which is where we kind of all started. Um,
Well, and I mean, let me say this about that. Um, I don't think there's really any gaming system out there that's impossible to run or hard to pick up.
yeah,
Learn the basics of the rule
hmm
and then just go do a story
yeah,
and do whatever. As a GM, you do whatever you want.
yeah. You don't have to
If
use all of the rules. You can,
No,
you
you
can,
don't have to follow all the rules. You can break
no.
the rules. The whole thing about being a GM in any game system is just building a story around the central theme of the game.
Mhm.
Know the basics, know how dice rolls work, know how different skills, abilities, spells, if they're spells, anything like that. Know how the basics work. And honestly, you could run any GM game. The biggest thing about being a game master is just being able to tell a story and being able to get the characters in the story and characters. You're gonna have point A to point B. Point A is where it starts. Point B is where the campaign scenario, whatever, ends. And if you're a good GM, that's what you need to know. You need to know where they start, where they're going to finish, know some things in between, but know that the characters are going to go off the beaten path
Yeah, they may
and just,
never get to point B. You may have to come up with point C at some point.
well, so for me, when I GM, I will always get the characters to point B to the end. They may take a path way around it, but I can adapt the scenario to get them back to it. I can always guide them back to it, and maybe I have to throw some things at them to get them off of that C path to get back to B, but I can always get them back because like I said, I've got a definitive start, I've got a definitive end. You just have to be adaptable throughout.
Yeah, and again, it's just understanding the base of the rule set. And if you see a rule you don't like, don't use it.
Yeah,
Make something else up.
right.
Hey, when this happens, this is what we do, and write it down. Because in 10 years in that campaign, you may go, "Oh, what were we supposed to do for that?" There it is. Well, this is what we do. Because the question will come up again.
Yeah, the whole thing with running any kind of campaign for any kind of role playing game is just for the game master at any rate, just make it so that the story is enjoyable for
Mhm.
for your group. Make it interesting and make it fun.
Yeah, let
And
them
if
get
you
this.
have to bend some rules, you bend some rules. There are many times as a GM where and you can play this both direction. Where the characters, the actual player characters are overmatched,
Mhm.
and I have to fudge some die rolls so that
Yeah, Or
My my
you gotta
NPCs don't
power
kill
your guys. Yeah, because
him.
the session before you had six people coming in. Well, not everybody could make it the next session. You only got four going in. This this big bad monster is going to kill four of your guys.
Right.
You
So you
really
have
needed
to
those two other
adapt
characters, so you got to power them down before you even start that fight.
because as a GM, I would always make the threat of death and make it to where there was a fear of death, but I never wanted the players to die. I never wanted their characters because those characters become very personal a
Mhm.
lot to the people who are playing them. And so my goal is never to kill them, just threaten it.
Yeah, it happens every once in a while.
It
It
sometimes
does.
it does. There
It
are
does.
sometimes it's unavoidable.
Yeah,
There,
and there's sometimes, and and there's some players that are completely okay with that.
yes,
Sometimes
yes,
people is like, no, 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 that's what would happen. That dude would die. He would do it like that. That's fine. I got another one I rolled up anyway.
right, right. And so it does happen. Player characters will die and can die, and sometimes it's
Mhm.
unavoidable.
Yeah,
But
in Dark Sun, I think that's kind of the idea, or get enslaved.
mm,
Um, but yeah, it's one of those campaign settings where the artwork is great, the idea behind it is great. There are a lot of fun toys to play with when you're in this campaign, and some big bads you can go up against. The ultimate being the Sorcerer King who turned himself into a dragon. Um, so it's like that. You could even attempt to go back to the Tower of Purity and reset the planet if you so desired. Um, but yeah, it's Dark Sun is it's one of those campaign settings that I've had a lot of material for and things like that. It's just brilliant. It's beautiful. I would recommend it. Go out, check it out. Nothing else, go to the website and read up on it. I think we should have the link in our link page. So
awesome. I had to look it up. That's talking about was a Lanvarok
Lanvarok, yeah,
or Lanvarok. Yeah.
yeah, Lan or Lanvarok, yeah. So that's what it was a Lanvarok. Okay, I was thinking right.
Yep. Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks for taking a trip with us on another RPG. I appreciate that.
Sure thing.
So with that, we will step over to the murdery side of the house.
Murder.
Had to correct myself there.
It's all right.
For today, I got my information off Fox 59 News, Wikipedia, the Prairie Land Buzz Magazine, and KSHB 41 News, Kansas City. And this is the story of the I-70 killer.
The I-70 killer.
The I-70 killer, it's an unidentified American serial killer who is known to have killed at least six store clerks in the Midwest in the spring of 1992. Um,
Can he be
it's
related to the BTK? Wasn't he
no,
operating out of Kansas?
they're yes from Indiana to Kansas,
Okay.
but not related to B2B because I mean BTK has been caught.
Uh-huh.
Um, but no, this has been a mystery for over 30 years now.
Oh wow.
Uh, the Nobody knows the identity or the motive behind the I-70 killings. And it was a string of slayings in strip malls near interstates that stretched from Indiana to Kansas in the early 90s. The murderer cut a swath through the central U.S. over the course of just barely a month in the spring of 92. And when it was over, the killer took a pause, and six people were dead in five locations. The nickname derives from the fact that several of the stores where the victims worked were located a few miles off of Interstate 70 that runs through the Midwestern U.S. His victims were usually young, petite, brunette women. One of the victims, though, was a man, but it's believed that the killer may have expected a woman in the store due to the store having a woman's name and the employee had long hair. All of the stores attacked were specialty stores and were usually only robbed of a small amount of cash. Uh, the killer is also suspected of shooting three more store clerks in Texas during 1993 and 94, one of whom survived, as well as a 2001 murder of a store clerk in Terre Haute, Indiana. This case has been featured on Unsolved Mysteries, America's Most Wanted, Dark Minds, and People magazine investigates, but the killer is yet to be identified. Investigators have not publicly identified any suspect. The killing spree itself began on April 8th, 1992, with the murder of 26-year-old Payless shoe store manager Robin Fuldauer in Indianapolis. She was alone in the store when she was shot. She was murdered sometime around 1:30 p.m.
Middle of
Her
the day.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay.
Most of these were middle of the day, which is the
Huh.
interesting thing. Her body was actually discovered in a storage room in the back of the store around 3 o'clock p.m., and there was less than $100 that had been stolen from the cash register. The next two murders occurred on April 11th at the La Bride d'Elegance bridal shop, which was 675 miles west of Indianapolis in Wichita, Kansas. So we go from April 8th to April 11th, 675 miles apart. These two victims were Patricia Smith, who was 23, and the store's owner, 32-year-old Patricia Magers. Um, this is the only case that involved multiple victims,
Mhm.
and investigators believe that the killer was probably under the impression that there was only one woman in the store. The women had stayed past the normal closing time of 6 p.m. to allow a male customer to pick up a cummerbund. Again, this one was one that was not broad daylight, 6 p.m. But sometime after 6 p.m., the women allowed the killer in the store, thinking he was a customer they were waiting for. After the women were murdered, the actual customer arrived to pick up the cummerbund and came face to face with the I-70 killer. The customer noticed the killer had a gun, and the killer asked the customer to come back with him into the store, and the customer refused, after which the killer told him to leave, which I found interesting.
I'm gonna
Uh,
murder you back here. No. Okay, then get out.
well, I doubt that they said I'm going to murder you. Just told them to come into the store, and the person refused.
Hmm.
Because the customer did notice that the killer had a gun again.
Yeah.
Um, if the customer had cooperated, most likely he would have been murdered as well. So
Yeah.
the customer didn't actually make it into the store quite, and obviously the killer, didn't want to be seen. Um, the customer was so frightened that he didn't report the incident until more than an hour has passed. He did provide details for a composite sketch of the killer and described the killer as a slender white man with reddish hair, armed with an Uzi style gun. We then go to April 27th. Michael McCown, who was 40, was killed in his mother's ceramic store, 600 miles back east into Terre Haute, Indiana, around 4 o'clock p.m.
He had
McCown's
long
wallet.
hair. Was it brunette? Brown hair?
He was. I didn't have that if he was brunette. I would assume so, since most
Yeah.
of them were. Um, Michael McCown's wallet had less than $50 that was stolen from the store, or his wallet and less than $50 were stolen from the store. No witnesses reported seeing the killer beforehand, and McCown is the only man that was killed during the spree. But again, believed that he chose the store because of the woman's name of the store, which was Sylvia's Ceramics, and probably made it a good target for him. Um, McCown was reported to have worn his hair in a ponytail and was shot from behind while he was kneeling to stock shelves, so he may have been mistaken for a woman.
And the guy's still not taking that much money.
Nope, he's
Okay.
never taken that much. On May 3rd, 24-year-old Nancy Kitzmiller was killed while she was working alone at a boot village, which was a footwear shop 200 miles west in St. Charles, Missouri. She opened the shop at noon and was found dead by customers at 2:30 p.m. She had been shot in the back of the head. She was actually supposed to be off that day. Sucks. However, she agreed to come in so that another coworker could have the day off. There was some money that was taken from the cash register, and no one heard the shot, but a witness did see her with her final customer just minutes before her death, and this sighting helped police create another composite drawing.
Was it similar to the other one?
They were the composites were similar. Yes.
Okay.
The final confirmed murder occurred on May 7th, another 200 miles away in Raytown, Missouri. This victim was 37-year-old Sarah Blessing, and she worked in her gift shop, Store of Many Colors. The murder occurred during the day, and the owner of the video store next door to Blessing's shop saw the killer enter the shop, heard a pop, and then saw him leave. He discovered Blessing's body after checking to see what had occurred in the store, and a clerk at a nearby grocery store also saw the suspect. He was climbing a hill towards I-70. So we've got multiple people who have seen this killer. Investigators do believe that the I-70 killer may be responsible for two murders in Texas in 93 and an attempted murder of 94. The two murder victims were 51-year-old Mary Ann Glasscock, who was killed on September 25th, 1993, in Fort Worth at the Emporium Antique Store, and 22-year-old Amy Vess, who was shot to death in a dance apparel store in Arlington, Texas on November 1st. The surviving victim was Vicki Webb, who was 35. She was shot on January 15th, 1994 in Houston at the Alternatives gift shop. She briefly spoke to the shooter before he shot her in the back of the head, but the bullet didn't penetrate into her head due to a large to her vertebra being hit, and it was a large vertebra that was hit. The shooter attempted to shoot her again, but his gun misfired and he left, presuming Webb to be dead. The MO of the Texas killer was very similar to the I-70 killer, and he used a 22 caliber firearm, the same caliber as the I-70 killer. The ballistics test determined that the gun used in the Texas murders was not the same as the one used in the I-70 killings. So investigators have not been able to confirm the I-70 killer was responsible for the shootings in Texas, but they were awfully close.
Yeah, and it's a similar time span too.
Yes. In November of 2021, Terre Haute police announced that the I-70 killer was a possible suspect in the 2001 murder of 31-year-old liquor store clerk Billy Brosnan. So this is another male, but it's not confirmed yet. On the evening of November 30th, 2001, Brosnan was working alone at the 7th and 70 liquor store in Terre Haute. Security camera footage showed a white male suspect enter the store and pull a gun on Brosnan and rob the cash register. Footage then showed the suspect lead Brosnan to the back of the store and murder him with a single shot to the back of the head. The murder of Brosnan occurred just 7 blocks from the murder of Michael McCown and was similar in MO to the I-70 murders. Unlike in the I-70 murders, though, security footage of Brosnan's killer exists, and police have stated they have a person of interest in the case. That's as far as we've got.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That 2001 one doesn't sound right because he took the money. Because
he took money in multiple. He or she took money in multiple cases, just never a lot of money. Robbery didn't never really seem to be the motive because there wasn't that much money taken.
Yeah, that's weird. I mean, it's not weird that they, it's like, well, he didn't steal anything. Well, I mean, like, even if you're gonna do it and you're gonna take some of the money, why only take $100? Why not empty out the register? That makes almost no sense.
Well, and it's never said if that was all the money that was in the register or not.
Oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, maybe
it's just in all the cases they seem to be kind of small shops and just didn't have a whole lot of money on them. So I don't know. The murders were conclusively linked after a St. Charles detective suspected a connection, and this was that all the murders were committed with a 22 caliber firearm, and the victims were usually petite young women with long dark hair. Aside from the Wichita murders, all the victims were alone. All of them were shot in the back of the head, and none of the scenes had any signs of sexual assault. And while all the stores were robbed, as we just mentioned, robbery appeared to be a secondary motive since the stores were small specialty businesses which didn't have much money.
Okay.
The murders all took place at slow times of the day when the store were deserted, such as after lunch or around closing time. and several of them were in strip malls near I-70. Based on witness testimonies, police strongly believe the murder weapon may have been an Intratec Scorpion pistol or an Irma Werke E22 pistol. This is very important because both of these are extremely rare and are prone to malfunction and jamming, which happened in one of the
And
cases.
they look
That
like
was Webb.
Uzis.
Yes, yes, they do.
They look like
Um,
Uzis. Okay, that makes sense.
well, and not to mention the barrel is almost a foot long. It's not very discreet at all.
No, no, no.
So detectives think that the gun may have had an emotional value to the killer, possibly passed
Okay.
down through generations by family, which was maybe a prized possession.
Yeah.
They have not, however, been able to rule out any other 22 caliber firearm models.
Yeah.
The ammunition used in the killings was a 22 caliber CCI copper-clad lead bullet.
Hmm.
The casings of the cartridges showed tracers of jeweler's rouge, which is a very fine powder of ferric oxide that's known as jeweler's rouge or red rouge or simply rouge. It's used to put the final polish on metallic jewelry and lenses, and historically as a cosmetic. Um, Rouge cuts more slowly than some modern polishes, such as ceram oxide, but is still used in optics fabrication and by jewelers for the superior finish it can produce. So that was found.
Well, yeah. Well, I say it
Um,
looks like an Uzi. It when he said Uzi style, that's yeah,
mhm,
it looks like a little machine gun, but it's not.
right, right. No, Midwest authorities linked the killer to the shootings in Texas in '94, but Texas authorities were not convinced of a connection as different guns were used in each spree. However, this could be attributed to when St. Charles made the decision to go public and release information about the gun to the media. Basically, in essence, they told the serial killer they knew what weapon he was using, and then he stopped. Or did he? Did he stop? We don't know. Based on witness descriptions, investigators were able to produce two composite sketches of the killer and a physical description of the suspect. The I-70 killer was described as a white man in his 20s or 30s, 5'7" to 5'9" inches tall, thin and having lazy eyelids and sandy blonde or reddish hair in 1992. So they say white man. I said earlier, don't know man or woman. I don't discount that it could be a woman. You never know because we
Yeah.
only have these composite sketches. People are, I mean, it's most likely, but you never know.
Yeah.
So go with white man. In 2021, the St. Charles Police Department published age progressed versions of the original composite sketch to show what the killer may look like today. They do believe that the killer is between 52 and 70 years old if he's still alive. Um, they did consider the potential of a serial killer trucker,
Hmm.
which was a theory that fell apart when no one could remember seeing a big rig parked nearby during the daylight slayings. Killer appeared to have no motive other than the thrill of killing. There was no sexual assaults, not even a struggle of any at any scene, and no significant robberies. Um, he obviously traveled with a purpose.
Hmm.
There didn't have to be so many miles between the killings.
No.
And he was obviously traveling to those destinations anyway, so that's why they thought perhaps a truck driver, traveling salesman, or military. Because if you think about it, who drives 1,200 miles back and forth between Indianapolis and Wichita just for the sake of killing?
Yeah.
So they definitely had a purpose. There would have been a whole lot of opportunities in between those miles.
Yeah. Yeah. There are plenty of strip mall shops.
Right. The killer likes to murder his victims during the busiest times of the day in plain sight, even though the shops themselves were not busy. Um, he seemed to have very little concern of someone walking in during the murders. The killer had no getaway vehicle anywhere in sight of the murders. And the killer is very much in control, which is exemplified by his composure when surprised, such as the killings of Patricia Magers and
Hmm.
Patricia Smith in Wichita, when he likely only expected one woman to be there, but found
And there were
two,
two.
and also had to contend with the customer.
Yeah.
Or Michael McCown, which he likely expected a woman in the store.
Yeah.
Yet in both instances, he quickly completed his mission and quickly moved on, mostly undetected, like before. Bob Cyphers, who's a retired St. Louis TV reporter, said, quote, I can tell you police believe they have a suspect. He's alive and well. He's living in the Midwest. Cyphers said Terre Haute police prepared a murder warrant for the man, but the prosecutor refused to sign on. Cypress said, quote, there is hope. DNA and science has changed the game, but in this case, so far, DNA is not matched. I know in Indianapolis, we had hairs. He also said, as I said before, we believe someone somewhere knows something. Maybe 30 years ago, they were too afraid to say anything. Maybe they didn't realize something they saw mattered or was connected to the case, but it's not too late. And it's never too late to do the right thing. That one tip combined with the new technology on DNA that we're using could be the very thing that helped catch this killer. Police have not publicly identified any suspects, and the case has been identified as a cold case. St. Charles Police have a full-time investigator assigned to the case, Kelly Rhodes, and Bob Cyphers said her only job is to catch this guy. I believe she's going to solve this case soon. Kelly Rhodes said that a week doesn't go by without any new tips. Said that everything they do is for families who have been wanting to know something for decades. The investigation now has moved past the gun and is focusing on science and technology to solve the case that wasn't available in 1992. Advancements in technology, including DNA and the proliferation of social media communications, that's why investigators still think they have a chance of solving this case after 30 plus years. The St. Louis Charles, Missouri Police Department still maintains a hotline to accept tips in the I-70 killer investigation. That number is 1-800-800-3510, and there is currently a $25,000 reward for anyone who provides information that leads to an arrest and conviction. And that's the story of the I-70 killer.
Well, thank you for that. You are going to put the sketches and pictures on our site, right?
Yeah.
In case anybody takes a look at, hey, that's Bill.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, you can find them readily online in pretty much every story that I looked at on this. They had the sketches, but yeah, I kind of would agree with Bob Cyphers that with advancement of DNA, I wouldn't be shocked if we had this case solved soon. And the killer stopped, they think. So it's possible that the killer went to jail. Maybe able to find him through DNA that way. It's possible the killer is dead. Who knows? But we're seeing some of these older cases being solved all over the place. B2K, the East Area, Eron's the East Area rapist.
Long Island serial killer.
You know, we're seeing so many of these big cases that the technology is helping us solve. If there's DNA left behind, it's going to be easier and easier to solve some of these cases.
Yeah. And dude, they can pull partial DNA off of dinosaurs.
Yeah.
You know, they could pull it off a 30-year-old piece of hair that somebody left behind.
I know. It's absolutely wild. So anyway, that'll take us to the end of our recording for this week. As always, you can find more about us on nerderyandmurdery.com, nerderyandmurdery.com. That's our hub. That's our website for everything about us. You'll find links to what we talked about, plus pictures from this episode, and you'll also find the link to our YouTube page, which Zig so often updates.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on Dark Sun. I've put in a couple of that were short, but some of these are like 2 and 3 hours long. If you're really into this, watch them. They're just cool, or in this case, nerdy. You know. Yeah.
Hence the name of the show, Nerdery.
Yeah, that's true.
On our website, and I thank you for all your work on that. On our website, you'll also find the link to our merchandise page, where if you wish to show up your nerdery and murdery fan, and boy, I'm tripping over the word of our own show today, nerdery and murdery fandom. Please do purchase something from there. That, along with our patrons, you can find the link to our Patreon account, where you can help donate to help with the costs that are associated with the show. It does cost to keep us on the air, to keep our website up, keep our uploads, everything that's associated with that. It is It is not free to do this show, and we do appreciate each and every one of you.
Please.
Please and thank you. And also with our Patreon, you do get episodes early. Originally, when we started, it was 2 weeks early, but now as soon as our episodes are ready, I put them on our Patreon page.
Yeah.
So you're getting
Yeah, we
them
make
sometimes weeks and weeks
yeah,
early.
6, 7, 8 weeks ahead
Yeah.
sometimes.
So consider doing that. We appreciate that. Also, please don't forget this is something you can do that's completely free. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review wherever you can. It really helps us and helps others find our content that may be looking for the topics that we discuss. So with that,
I have been Zig with your nerdery.
and I'm Geoffrey with your murdering.
Cue the music.